Hi, everybody. Of your time, we'll go ahead and get started, and then as anybody else trickles in, they can just find a seat. Thanks for coming to STPUD's Contractors Forum today. It's been a few years since we've had one of these. I think our last one was in January of 2018. For obvious reasons, we haven't had one in recent years. But we're trying to get things back to a little bit more normal. So our purpose today is to engage with the contractors in our community and field any questions that you might have, talk about some kind of hot topics, and help hopefully teach us a little bit about what the challenges are that you guys face when you're bidding and building district projects, and to share with you what our outlook is for the next bidding season, the next few years, the next 10 years. So with that, we'll go ahead and get started. I just want to let you all know that we are actually recording this meeting today. All I think they can see is me and the screen. But we will go ahead and post this recording on our website if anybody wants to refer back to it in the future. My name is Julie Ryan, and I am the District's Engineering Department Manager. I'm going to do the bulk of the presentation today, but I'll get some help from some of our project managers. I'll ask them to come up and provide some of the details on their own projects that are going to be bidding over the course of the next year. So we have a pretty brief agenda for the day. I hope to have you in and out of here in the course of an hour. We'll get started with some details of our capital improvement program. I'll kind of do the big picture 10-year view first, and then we'll dive into some more details on some of the upcoming construction projects for this bidding season and for the next couple of years. Then we'll touch on some of the pitfalls, the unique features of working with STPUD, and then we'll get into some hot topics, as I mentioned, and open it up for discussion. So STPUD, we have a pretty aggressive 10-year goal for capital improvement spending, $138 million between our water and sewer funds. We have a little bit more set aside on our sewer 10-year plan than we do on our water side, and we are trying to actually build that. So the water side program we are hoping will increase in the coming years as we pursue stimulus funding and other funding options. Last spring, April of 2021, we published a capital improvement program plan. It's available on our website. I've got the link for you here if you want to make note of that. This document has a project information sheet for every project on our 10-year plan, both funded projects and projects that we're still seeking funding for. So if there's anything else that you want to know about any of the projects that we touch on today, I encourage you to go download this document. It's a PDF, and it's about 100 pages long. So, but it does have some handy little information sheets on each of the projects, so you can learn more about them. I'm going to kind of walk through some of the major categories of work that we have in our 10-year forecast for construction. Starting first with our underground projects. We have about $38 million worth of spending currently allocated in our budget. It's about 90,000 linear feet and about 11 projects. If you're familiar with district projects, our projects have normally been about a mile. We are increasing the size of those projects in hopes of getting more done over the course of the next 10 years. So that's something I'm going to be looking for feedback from you all on, is how big is too big for these waterline replacement projects. Sewer lines, we've got about $22 million allocated over 10 years. Not all of those projects have been defined yet. We're still ramping up our sewer replacement and rehab program, but we do have some areas of our system that we know are going to need work. We have 50,000 linear feet included in that 10-year plan, 11 to 14 projects. Again, as we identify more areas that need work, we'll kind of pin down how many projects we've actually got. And that's a mix of both rehab and full replacement. 2 years ago, we completed our Apache Avenue sewer line replacement project. That's the first comprehensive gravity sewer main replacement project that the district has done in my 15 years here, maybe ever. And we're going to be looking to do more rehabilitations instead of full replacements in the future, just to extend the life of those pipes and hopefully save us some money. The district has facilities, our recycled water facilities, out in Alpine County. We've spent quite a bit of attention on projects in that area over the last 10 years. Now we're proceeding into a recycled water strategic planning period, and so we're really tailing off the level of effort we're expending out there at our Diamond Valley Ranch. But there are two fairly sizable projects on the list for the next few years. One is a rehabilitation of our Diamond Ditch, which is the concrete line ditch that leaves our Harvey Place recycled water reservoir and delivers recycled water to rangers for land application. With the Tamarack fire, the scope of this project may be changing. We were anticipating it was going to be a targeted repair kind of project, and the budget we set aside reflects that. But now, with all the lands of slope of them having been burned, we're having to take a step back and reassess the scope of that project. We also have a couple of miles of road improvements across our extensive district property out there, paving and drainage type improvements. Back inside the basin, we are ramping up our field station rehabilitations and replacements. We have $36 million included in the current 10-year plan. 3 projects are focused on water booster station rehabilitations. We have 1 well rehabilitation at our El Tahoe well, which is one of our major supply wells. 10 sewer station rehabilitations, and 6 tank recoatings. Let's see. The note on the sewer station rehabs, that's a pretty aggressive schedule. We're actually expecting to do about 1 sewer station a year for the next 10 years. The first one is under contract now, and it's going to be getting started next summer. Our focus has been on what we call the Big 5, our 5 major pump stations that feed sewage here to the wastewater treatment plant. Then we'll switch our focus over to what we call the forestry stations. All the beach parks that are along the south shore of Lake Tahoe, the district owns and maintains sewer stations that serve those facilities. They were all installed in the same year, in 1968, and so they're all reaching the end of their useful life at the same time, and we're looking at pump and motor, full electrical system rehabilitations, and we're currently scoping out those projects. The 6 tank recoating projects, we have about 22 steel water tanks in our water and sewer systems, and we have just ramped up a tanks asset management program that revisits these tanks on a cycle, and hopefully will help us get caught up on touching up those tank coatings before they reach a state of failure and have to be completely redone. So this program includes a number of full tank recoatings, but also includes those touch-up programs. And then finally, at the wastewater treatment plant, we have about $24 million set aside over the next 10 years for a fairly short list of projects. We have a blower system improvements project that will really focus on improving the efficiency in our aeration system, slated to start about 3 years from now. We have 4 filters that have not yet been rehabbed since about the 1980s, and so I believe at least 2 of those 4 are making it into our 10-year plan for the next 10 years. And then our return activated sludge pumping station is the oldest remaining functional facility in our wastewater treatment plant process. We have that scheduled to be a rehabilitation project of that small facility, which you can see my cursor. It's this little square here in the middle of the plant. As we're getting more information and closer to scoping that project, it's likely that it's going to become a full replacement project based on the structural condition of the building. We have a rehabilitation of these ballast ponds here at the south side of our property. That's on the 10-year plan. And then a rehabilitation or replacement of our lower shops facilities. Outside the process, these are some of the oldest structures at the wastewater treatment plant, and we will be looking over the next couple of years at how we want to set up our shops moving forward and kind of defining the scope of that. Is it going to be a rehabilitation or a full replacement? In the short term, this is just looking at the next year of bidding. We have these 4 bullets cover 5 separate contracts that will be advertised for bid from within the engineering department. Now, I just want to point out that this is just the major capital projects that the district will be advertising for bid. We have smaller things that may also come out over the course of the next year, including advertisements that come out of our purchasing department. So it's not just these 5, but these are the ones that we're going to focus on here today. And so with that, I'm going to pass it over to Adrian first, our senior engineer, to talk about the Bowers and Fiji water lines, which are the 2 projects he will be managing. Yeah, page down.
Hi everyone, I'm here to talk about the Bowers and Fiji waterline projects. So these are 2 fairly significant projects for us. Bowers being 7,600 linear feet, Fiji being 6,600 linear feet. These are both in residential areas with services, every 50 to 75 feet. One of the things that I want to mention on these projects is that working with the city, we're not going to be able to build all of these projects and then do final paving all at the same time at the end of the year. Once the project's complete, we're going to have to do paving in sections as we're going. It looks like every 2,000 feet is where we'll have to do final paving for. So it'll be building 2,000 feet, testing it, tying in all the services, and then doing final paving while moving over to the next section. When we have the mandatory pre-bid meeting for these projects, I hope to have more information for you on that front. Originally, we had planned for these 2 projects to be bid together as one large project, 14,000 feet, but we did have some concerns on just the ability to be able to get that built within a single grading season. So we are splitting them into 2 projects. You can see each project's got about 140 services, 10 fire hydrants. And anywhere where we are going to be in pavement doing a trench patch, we'll have to do a 2-inch mill and overlay for half of the street. So these are the projects, this is the Bowers project area. There are, I believe, 3 streets on this that Southwest Gas is also going to be replacing their gas line with. So when we have our pre-bid and we have our execution of work, there's going to be 3 of these streets that will need to go first. They're not too spread out. The majority of these pipeline replacements are replacing mains that are 2-inch and smaller, old steel lines. So we'll be improving fire flow and just getting the pipe in the ground. And this is the Fiji project. Actually, there's a little bit more project area shown than we're doing here. But these are fairly close to each other. We're going to be staggering the bids so that bids will be due, I believe, I think it's on here, 2 weeks apart from each other. So the hope there is that if the low bidder on the first project has capacity to do the second project, they end up with the second phase as well. So our hope is to get the same contractor, but realizing that these are big projects, that's the reason we split them into 2.
So they'll advertise on the same day, they'll pre-bid on the same day, but the pre-bid meeting will be on the same day at the same time, right? But,
yes.
Then the bid openings will be split apart.
So we're planning to advertise December 3rd. We're working on the design right now. That might get pushed till mid-December, but keep your eyes open. And with that, I'll turn it over to Trevor to talk about the Keller Heavenly project.
Hello, I'm Trevor Coolidge, Senior Engineer of the district. The Keller Heavenly project is the 3rd phase of our Keller Heavenly water system improvements. So as of right now, we've got a tank foundation up there. Next spring, we'll have a rockfall barrier going up and then a new tank. That'll leave midsummer the ability to take down this existing 200,000 gallon bolted steel tank and then complete work on this access road. We'll have new supply return lines. They're about 500 feet apiece, about 1,000 feet of main line there, an overflow line, and then we'll throw pavers in on top of that. There's also the demo of 4 large PRVs, the reinstallation of new vaults, and 3 new PRVs. Those are 6 or 8 inches with bypasses. Each of them gets an electrical drop. Each of them gets communication, instrumentation. And then we also have a fair bit of work at our booster station, which is right at the lower curve on Keller. It's an old block building. We're going to stay with that building, but we'll replace the suction and discharge piping within the 8 feet of the station, swap out the switchgear, new lighting, new heater, new BMPs on the property. So a very tiny postage stamp. I think the whole parcel is like 1,200 square feet. So a really small station, but pretty important. So as part of that, you'll also be installing a bypass to pump from our Heavenly pressure zone into the Keller zones at the intersection of Saddle and Keller. So there will be a temp bypass connection there, coming from one pressure zone to the other, and then there'll be a skid mount duplex pump system with controls that'll operate with a power drop while you're doing that work. One other thing that's not on this slide is we have a similar tank site, Lookout Tank, which is in the Angora Burn area off of Elk Point. It doesn't currently have a direct access road. It's a very steep slope. We're looking at including that as a bid alternate. So just about double the amount of paver, roadway construction, and retaining wall work on this project as a bid alternate. So this is an area map. So the majority of the work is scattered around the neighborhood near the Heavenly, California Base Lodge. You can see at the very top left is where the access road is off of Sherman Way, where we're doing a bulk of the work, a fair bit of the work. And the bottom left, that's the dog leg toward the bottom of the map on Keller with the rehab work. So we're trying to get this out the door at the end of January for bidding. We'll do a partial notice to proceed in April. We anticipate there's a number of long lead items between the electrical gear for the pump station, potentially high pressure piping. That station runs around 300 PSI, and then also all of our PRV equipment. And so with the remaining work on the tank site, we're picturing getting on the tank site probably mid-August next summer. Some of the PRDs could go sooner or get prepped to go sooner. And then project completion would be next summer. Once all those items come in, you're able to complete those items. So if you have any questions, I'll take them. Otherwise, I'll get Brent up here.
All right, I've got our next sewer pump station. So Adrian's got the top keys going this coming summer. But before that's done, we're going to bid this project. Same idea with the getting ahead with lead times on materials. So this is the Upper Truckee pump station rehabilitation. It's our second of our big five. It basically pumps all the sewer from Olive Myers back here to the treatment plant. And so it's existing building, working within that existing building to replace all 3 pumps. Right now, what you see there in the picture in the green are the old pumps. They've got a direct drive shaft up to kind of a middle level, and so we're going to demo those and put in dry pit submersibles down there. It is going to be a little tight, so part of this project involves cutting out part of the floor in that middle level and building a gantry crane down there to be able to move these pumps around. So it'll be all new electrical gear, and we'll use the temporary electrical and controls trailer that the Top Keys project is building. We'll use that when they're done with it to get these new pumps up and going. So definitely the tricky part here is going to be keeping the pump station in operation 24/7, being a sewer pump station, and installing the new and switching things over. So yeah, new electrical. Most of it's all new piping inside. Basically, ends up with a complete gut. A few seismic retrofits above grade. So yeah, 3.5 million is the estimate, and this is the location. That's the Sierra Track neighborhood, so it's just off the back end of that, right up against the Upper Truckee River. So pretty close here, and just yeah. So planning to advertise this summer. Notice to proceed in the fall. Again, really that get procurement done, get materials coming for construction to complete in summer 2023.
Hi all, my name is Ivo Bergson. I'm a hydrogeologist with South Tahoe PD. The Tlack Creek Sewer Crossing Project, the complexity with this project has to do with its location. The project location is about 500 feet west of the Baldwin Beach parking area, and it's about another 500 feet directly south of the south shore of Lake Tahoe. The project involves constructing a long-term protection for this crossing, which is currently emergent in the channel of Tlack Creek. That would be a 370 cubic yard rock grade control structure that would be used as the long-term protection for that project. The engineer's estimate for the project is roughly $400,000. So here's a picture of the crossing. It's about a 40-foot reach crossing across the channel. It's about 1.5 feet square. The rock rate control structure would be constructed on the downstream side of the crossing. And as far as the timing for the project, you can see here's a hydrograph of Lake Tahoe elevation, and this is the top of the concrete encasement. Since about May of 2020, lake levels have been declining, and they've declined to a point where now the encasement is fully emerged. So we're going to try, hopefully, will stay below 6228 as far as lake elevation goes. So that will make life a lot easier for everybody as far as the amount of dewatering and location work that needs to be done to construct that control structure. So we're looking, we're currently working on the environmental permit applications. We're updating those and hope to have everything in place so that we can go out to bid in the early summer of 2022 with construction after Labor Day, after the Labor Day holidays. Any questions? Julie, it's all yours.
All right. Well, thanks everybody. That helps give a little bit more detail about what's coming up in the near term. Looking a little bit further ahead, this is an excerpt from our budgeted 10-year plan on the water side. And these are the projects just that are slated for construction in 22 through 25. I actually even took out the ones that we talked about just to make space on the page. So this is everything else. So I'll just walk through a few of these to kind of give you an overview. A few years ago, we did an interior tank coating on Heavenly Tank up at the base of the Heavenly ski resort area, and we didn't get out of there in time to do the exterior coating work before winter set in. So we ended up carving that off of the contract, and we're going to be rebidding that in conjunction with this flagpole tank project here that'll go in 23. Meters cleanup. If you've been around town over the last 10 years, you know that the district has been spending a lot of time putting residential meters in. Well, we're down to less than 100 that remain. These are more complex meter installations. Some of them are requiring us to add water lines, move service boxes, or pull together easements with property owners. And so we're going to be chipping away at these over the course of the next few contracts on the water side. So you might see some of our water line projects come out with a little bit of additional work somewhere else completely in the system to help us chip away at that. Next, we've got a list of water lines that'll be moving forward. For 2023, we've got Black Bart 1 and 2. This project, we don't really have the luxury of splitting into two pieces, so because it's a one contiguous project area. And so if we're going to get it all done in 1 year, we're going to need to do it under one bid. So it's over 10,000 feet right out the gate. It may be more than that once the design is complete. Similar of the Herbert walk-up area in 25. This is an area of our system that has been very, very leak prone. And so it's a major focus for our water crew to get that fixed. Apache Avenue waterline improvements. That is being moved forward in coordination with El Dorado County, who has a complete streets project slated for Apache Avenue. This is down in the Myers area near the magnet school. And so that'll build with their project in 2023. Pioneer Trail waterline, which also includes a number of PRVs that are listed here. Those are slated to go in 2024. And this project will, it's kind of a loop project. It'll tie our state line zone to our Myers zone along Pioneer Trail. It's a brand new water line. Not many services there, but it'll be a larger diameter, something in the 12-inch range, I believe. 16-inch range, to provide fire flow to some fire deficient neighborhoods on the south end of town. With that project, we've got all these PRVs that are listed here happening at the same time. Upper Truckee River Myers waterline reliability improvements. This is also in coordination with the with the county. So while it goes in 22, we didn't talk about it today because we're not actually bidding it. But I expect that they'll have their opportunity on the street when, you know?
Not exactly sure.
Sometime in the spring.
So, yeah, sometime in the spring or late winter, hopefully.
Yeah.
And our work on that is about 1,200 feet of underground 12-inch and about 150 feet of above ground piping that will be connected to the bridge.
Yeah, so the county's project is installing a bridge across the Upper Truckee River from top of Paradise Park, Lake Barron area to the west as a pedestrian improvement. And so we're going to piggyback off of that and get a water line that's currently in the river hung on the bridge. We've got a couple of smaller water lines in 25. The Altaha well rehab. I mentioned earlier that this is a very critical well facility for the district. There's a possibility that this project is going to move forward. Discussions we've been having with our field crews in the last week or two, they're real concerned about the reliability of that station to make it to 2025. So we'll be looking at maybe moving that forward to 24. But for now, we've got the money in 25. We already talked about Keller Booster. That is being moved forward to 22. Got a couple of tank coatings here. And then we have some smaller well projects that are really focused on replacing pumps and motors in 22 and 23. On the sewer side, I touched briefly on the work out at Diamond Valley Ranch in Alpine County. That's the first two on this list. Then we get into our gravity system rehabilitation. We have a couple of problem areas identified here in the 89 and 5th and Ski Run area. The Upper Truckee River gravity main, we're not totally certain whether that's going to go in 25 or not. It is basically tied with the Johnson Meadow restoration project that's being driven forward by TRCD. And so we are going to be coordinating with them on that, and that timing will be set by that. We've got the Fiji pump station, which will be the third of our big 5 pump stations to undergo rehab. And that project may be paired with wet well improvements at some other sewer stations that aren't slated for a more comprehensive rehab in the next 10 years, but that we know have some issues with their wet wells. The first of the forestry stations that we will be tackling are the Pope Beach stations 1 and 2. Those will be under a single contract. It'll have to be done in coordination with the Forest Service, and I think the most of the disturbance we're going to try to limit to after the beach is closed. So we'll see how that works out as far as access goes. And these are very small pump stations. I think they currently have 3 horsepower pumps in them. And we're looking at maybe a canned solution, package solution for those replacements. And then the last ones here are on the wastewater treatment plant, which I think I touched on most of these. We do have a number of paving projects that I didn't bring up around our plant that we're kind of taking off in chunks. And the first of those will be the center road here that kind of goes from our parking lot down towards our lower shops. So, anybody got questions on projects before we move into some of the challenges of working with the district? Okay. Well, if you haven't worked with us before, we do our bidding through an electronic portal, Planet Bids. We not only distribute the contract documents, the bidding documents through that portal, but we also receive the bids electronically. The one thing that we receive in hard copy that I want to stress needs to come in before the bid opening is that original bid security. People have been caught out in the past not getting us that bid security in time, and we've had to throw out their bids as a result because the project is not secure until we have that bid security in hand. The other thing I want to point out is grant requirements. When our projects are being funded by an outside source, we include some additional sections in our contract documents, sections 74 and 75, that lay out all the requirements associated with that funding source. Most commonly, we use state revolving fund loans, which require both 30-day advertisements for disadvantaged business enterprises, following the Good Faith Effort guidelines. And they also have an American iron and steel requirement. Sometimes we use FEMA funds, and those requirements are a little bit different. So depending on the project, you really need to pay attention to those sections 74 and 75 and what the specific requirements are for that job. Let's see. As far as a recent update to our contract requirements, we have made some changes to how we do our pay estimates. If you've worked with the district in the past, you'll be familiar with our pay estimate process. We actually distribute to you through the project inspector a table every month for you to complete together as to what the level of completion is, rather than you generating your own invoice and submitting it to us. And so we take that burden off of you, and we work together on that end of it. We were having some challenges meeting our accounting deadlines for getting you paid on time, just because it was we had very short time frames, both for the back and forth between us and you on agreeing on quantities, and also, getting those signed pay estimates back from the contractors to be able to turn in so that we can get you paid. So last year we took a step back. We looked at the language that was in our documents and updated it to conform more closely to what the public contracting code guidelines are for progress payments. And so updated the language accordingly. And now I think the pay estimate process is moving much more smoothly. You have a little bit more time for back and forth, and every pay period ends on the same day. It's the last day of the month, of the calendar month is when the pay estimate period closes. So I think it's going to be easier for people to keep track of. And then the last thing I wanted to talk about for working with the district is the last couple years we have started adding a line item on a lot of our bids that say, as needed services for the water system, as needed services for the sewer system, and there is a lump sum amount identified. Generally, it's around $100,000. That is put in there so that we have a way to work with contractors on smaller things that have come up over the course of the year that we need to get done, and we'd like your help on them. We generally intend to do those on a time and materials basis with approval from district staff, and we now have that money in place in the contract to draw from for that work. So if you haven't been around for a while, it's something that you'll see on our bid forms, and so far it's been working pretty well. So now I want to talk a little bit about kind of the current bidding climate, and I'm hoping to hear back from you all about what you're seeing out there as far as some of the challenges. I know it's like a really rocky time right now for getting pricing, securing product, getting it delivered. As you heard from everybody talking about how we're trying to get our projects out on the street in plenty of time to do stuff, are we giving you enough time? are there any particular types of materials that you're seeing more challenges with? Anybody have any input, feedback? Yes.
Johnny Gonzalez of Ferguson Waterworks. I actually got two representatives here from the manufacturers.
Oh, great.
So this is actually perfect for them to talk about, because you guys are going to hear it from, the horse's mouth. So if you guys mind, I'm trying to...
Yeah, I'm Trevor with AFC. Kind of part of this.
Yeah, no, go ahead.
Cool.
So we can actually understand you.
We do the fire hydrants and the gate valves, and we also make duct run pipe. But mentioning lead times and pricing, mainly for the contractors, is that as a manufacturer, we're having a hard time getting raw materials to make this, whether it's domestic to go to the AIS standard or imported stuff, which I know the district doesn't do a lot of, but other places in the U.S. allow import stuff. It's been really tough on our end on that part. And I know that's pushing our lead times out to my distributors, who in turn have a hard time supplying the contractor or the district. So I would say right now, hydrant valves call it a 10-week lead time, where last year you could have called me and said, hey, Jabber, I need 10 hydrants. I would have told you you can have them in 2 weeks. So that's changed quite a bit. So to us, that's a big change.
Yeah.
And as far as pricing, it's really a war on raw materials, whoever's paying more per ton on the steel and the raw material. And so is also the trucking demand and supply shortages that we are seeing to get the stuff out of the plant once we've built it. So it's all just stacking up, and holding pricing, let's say, to distribution, if you have a 1-year contract on whatever material it may be, makes it really tough, because we experience the same raise on our end, and we're basically just pushing that forward. So you've seen.
I have never heard of the word force majeure before, but I've used it plenty of times already. I manage the state of California and Nevada for Ferguson Waterworks, and I've had to use that word plenty of times to put myself out of contracts because it's just not working in our favor. So one of the things that I think would be, probably for the majority of projects, is if you were able to buy your products early, maybe the district was able to buy the product. There's the long lead time, high dollar, because you just never know. At the blink of an eye, it's double.
Yeah.
And so that's maybe one of the things that we can help you out with.
Okay, and so you see my advanced purchase item on here as one concept. We've had a few things that we've advanced purchased or pre-negotiated prices on in recent years. And I'm kind of looking at Steve and Brent to see if they have any input about, how did that go? And has it helped us keep things moving forward in this climate?
Yeah, we did on our most recent generator one, we did a pre-purchase. So we got at least through submittals, got it coming, got it ordered before we had the contract into place. That one, the way we did that was that we assigned that purchase order over to the contractor. And so that's worked pretty well. We've got the generator sitting out here. It was on site by the time we got the company slab board. So, but that one still came probably 6 weeks later than what we had expected when we ordered it 2 months early. So yeah, it's still a challenge, but it seems to be making a difference.
Yeah, and I think working with, locking yourself down to just one specific manufacturer, I'm talking about like your water products, it can kind of hurt you guys, right? But if you guys are kind of open up to the more equal, just for the time being, and making sure that obviously it's going to work for you guys, I think that's how I was able to help out some other districts. They were so locked in with one specific product, and they were just not seeing material for 6 months, where I was able to come up with a very good equal, actually better, and I was able to get the material within a couple months. So I think just communication, with the manufacturers reps, and we can help you guys out with lead times. It's just a communication.
Any thoughts on the pre-negotiation side? That is a little rougher, I would think, right now.
Yeah, I wouldn't want to try it right now, but we've got it for the next 2 clarifiers, and haven't had any pushback yet.
Yeah, so we use that mechanism for the clarifier mechanisms for our 3 clarifiers, which were, we wanted to have the same mechanism, right, for all 3. And so we did it open, right? There were multiple manufacturers on the first bid.
And we still sourced the next bid for the next 2, but we pre-negotiated the price in order to not pay too much, basically.
Yeah, so basically what that is. So.
I mean, the process was really smooth. It's a lot simpler than a pre-purchase, but it's not as, I guess it's not as contractually tight as a pre-purchase is. So.
Yeah. So those are kind of examples, I guess, of some big pieces of equipment that we have followed this pre-purchase, pre-negotiated. But we've also done it for lots of small things, right, Trevor?
We've done it for 6,000 or 8,000 water meter lids. We usually pre-order our census meters just because there's a long lead time on those. We're kind of stuck with the sole source issue with those. But those worked out really well when we were able to provide that material to the contractors from the get-go. We were really struggling to get those materials in a timely fashion. I was curious, how are you handling warranty? Like if we pre-purchase something, and sometimes our products are even moving out of here, if we get a valve with a cracked pond, if there's something, how are you handling warranty on that? So I think that's one of the reasons why we don't typically do it. We really like to go to our contractor and get taken care of and know that they're backed up.
Right, well, majority of the valves, like you're talking about like water valves, like.
Just any product that it might show up in December, it doesn't go into the ground until May, and then it's the following spring that we realize we've got an issue.
Right. You want to speak on the valve?
Sure. Warranty. I mean, typically all our material has a 10-year warranty, so whether it's been installed in the ground or it's sitting here in the room, if you call me and say, Jared, there's a problem, I'm most likely going to come out to look at it and go from there. But we're able to track all the valves based on our numbers that we put on them. So I can tell you at least when it was produced within our own internal system to kind of have an idea of what's going on.
Yeah, I mean, sometimes it's even just something little like a service valve and the thing cracks, and then we're in the position of the contractor saying, well, you gave us a bad valve, the casting was bad, and then the supplier says, well, you over-tightened it, and we're stuck in the so it doesn't happen very often.
Well, that's right up.
I can speak to that, yeah. My name is Nick with AY McDonald, service brass provider. I can say that our company is going to look at it, but they're also going to stand by the product. They understand that things happen over time. They basically take a big picture look at the situation. Did it affect the whole street? Did it affect just one little area? And then we go from there. Kind of, I would say, similar to his situation, but we look at we don't have a way to track what valve was made in the production run or whatnot, but we're going to look at it and do what's right by the situation. So if it leaked 5 years ago and we just now found it, we're going to look at the overall situation versus if it leaks now and it's not affecting everything type of deal. So, and on the lead times, by the way, for brass and things, just to put a quick comment out there, I'd say a lot of it is just dependent on, we've had a spike obviously in purchase orders across the country, as well as components. So a lot of the service brass fittings, we're able to pour all the castings, machine them, do everything we can, but we might be missing a gasket, we might be missing an O-ring, we might be missing something, a little nut for a pack joint. So sometimes we have a stack of orders this high, and sometimes it's one single component holding up an entire run of 1,500 valves. But I'd say for service brass stuff, on regular fittings, we're looking at 10 to 12 weeks. On meter pits, which I know you guys utilize up here, those are about 16 weeks, but we have been hitting those dates, which is a silver lining of telling somebody 16 weeks. Are you guys seeing a light at the end of the tunnel, or is it too soon to tell?
It's too soon to tell. I think this winter is probably going to be a pretty good indicator of, I mean,
we're projecting to have some kind of issues throughout all of 2022. I think we'll see, in my opinion, and what we've talked about company-wide, is we'll see a reduction in our lead times. I don't think we're, in 2022, going to get back to where we were, where we're pulling stuff off the shelf. So yeah, I think it's still a little bit to be determined.
Any idea on ductile iron pipe and C900 pipe 8-inch, what the lead time is for that right now?
Theoretically, you would like to know that.
Anybody's guess?
All of our stuff's going to be AIS too.
It is, which is not a problem on our end to hit AIS. It's just the demand, as they're mentioning, has been insane.
Well, yeah, you think about the demand. I mean, majority of the United States, when they're ordering product, like, you know, for 8-inch fittings or whatnot, a lot of that stuff was coming from overseas, India, China. And so a lot of this USA must be made product, AIS. I mean, there wasn't a lot. There was an abundance, but not as much as China American or China India. Now, you know, everybody's asking for, we want American made, we want the stuff. You know, we're not getting the shipments over, you know, in enough time. So American products are so backed up, even more than what they were before. It's nuts. It's really crazy. I mean, there's a lot of districts that ask for American made product only, and they're just like, I'll just take whatever we can. I don't care, you know.
What I'm thinking of is our 14,000 feet of pipe that we want to build next year. That's all being funded through the state revolving fund, so it has to be AIS.
Right.
And right now, we got our first one bidding March 3rd, hoping to break ground May 1st. What do you guys think about that time?
That could be on par. Okay. You should be okay on that. Problem is this: we have a plan to Beaumont, Texas, that makes some of our valves and hydrants. But the thing with that area is that all the resin factories that make plastic pipe, when they have a hurricane, that whole area, and if you've ever been out there, it's just nothing but refineries. That's what they do. So when one gets hit, they all shut down. It affects all the pipes out there. Not the ductile side on us, but all the PVC stuff that you see, Johnny. And it just goes crazy, and one thing falls into another. So I would say your timing right now is okay. Like I have some of my larger districts that have capital improvement projects of the larger size, 16 and up. They're already doing purchasing for that right now with anticipation of spring next year to start, which is about right. We can hit those dates. If you ever run into, you know, issues and you have the demand to do a project and you need stuff quicker, we just got to stay in touch so we can supply that stuff sooner, or jump the line and say, hey, you guys need it, Johnny needs it, or a contractor needs it. We still have the ability to work on that. But just a regular standard lead time, if he orders 50 hydrants, it's going to take, you know, the full 10 plus weeks.
One thing to keep in mind, Adrian, is that you use pipe roughly. Like, pipe is only 50% of the issue. The fittings, the restraints, and the accessories that go along with the pipe's useless without those. And there was times where a 12-inch T, a 12 by 6-inch hydrant T was 12 to 16 weeks. I don't know what it is now, but that's a heart and soul of a small water system project like you guys have. And you can get the pipe on the ground, but you can't get the fitting or the restraint on the ground. That's the issue.
Right. Johnny, have you seen any improvement from the building?
No.
Along those lines, Dave with GV2 Engineering, we just completed a project for a water company where they supplied all the materials. And in the big picture, it went well. But it's the little things that came up that really caused some issues. For instance, coming across unknown pipes that were tied into the old system. Well, now we need more parts. We need more T's, valves, and so forth, and that was a long lead time. Also, what came up was the engineer had to change some of the specifications for the pipe. For instance, he wanted IPS on everything, and that lead time was so far out, they changed it to CTS. Things like that you need to take a look at.
Say that last sentence again? They changed it to what?
He changed it to CTS, copper tube size. And a few other things got changed because of the lead time of those materials. But the biggest issue we had was when we came down to tying in
the services to changing over to the new line. There's so many different lines you come across there. We had a few issues there as far as finding the correct material and having it available to transfer those services. There were a few quick trips down to Reno, and we did avoid trips down to Sacramento, but just like caution, it's the little things on that will really bite you.
So what I'm hearing from that is that it's probably worth our time for us to work with our own crews on their own inventory to make sure that when you guys are running across issues on our system from these tie-ins, that we're actually prepared to help you out to keep the project moving forward. Because a lot of times, you know, we have no idea what you're going to encounter until you're out there, right?
Correct.
And you know, we have a history of working with our contractors to keep things moving forward like that. But if our supply is diminished, right, and you go to the storeroom and there's nothing there, that's not going to help.
I think that's kind of a crapshoot too. You just don't know what you can get to.
Yeah.
For the most part, of our system has a lot of units and also contracting establishments to talking about that project that 100 plus years of attention to that.
Yeah. Yeah, so you're right. On the because most of our meters have been installed over the last 5 to 10 years, these projects that are going in, when you get out there, you're tying into a meter pit that's new, and it's just the service line that you're replacing. But so that should help. But the inner ties to the existing system on the periphery of the project, you're tying into old stuff, and we won't really know until you get there.
You guys could potentially look at doing some pre-project potholing investigation work on your guys' ends. You know, another thing is if you were to pre-order a lot of this material, some of these times get specific, and I see it all the time where things are drafted up or plans are incorrect. You know, they're kind of schematic in that sense, and engineers and districts can probably do better in that sense of figuring out what's actually in the ground before the project is bid and actually trying to design their connections and their tie-ins, including their service connections at times, because those are sometimes schematic and at contractors' discretion how they kind of go back together, and that's not a good deal for anybody. So if you, as a district and engineering staff, were to get a better handle on that stuff,
yeah,
that'd be better too.
Yeah, if you've did our Waterline projects in the past, you know, it was kind of a 50-50 chance that there would even be topo on them, and we're moving in that direction of trying to provide more information to y'all when we get them. So thanks for that input.
The pre-investigation of the system is really a good idea. Think about Tahoe Paradise area. I know when the district took that over, there was no maps. You go from valve to valve. Our company did a lot of work for the district back when Ken Schroeder was here because of an issue with a erosion control project. Every time they dug in the ground, it seems like for a DI, there was a conflict with the existing water main. So on something like that, it might be worth the district's time to get the crew out there just to verify the pipe location and the OD and material ahead of time.
Yeah, that's a good point. Pricing. Are the prices is inflated right now on the supply side as we're hearing? I haven't. Yes? Yeah, we haven't had anything bid since, what, springtime? And we weren't seeing it huge as far as materials, but I feel like it's, even since spring, it's a different world, isn't it?
Yes, definitely, yeah. You look for 3 or 4 times.
Bring up last year.
So, you know, depending on how the prices come in, that'll definitely impact our ability to get, you know, all the work we're planning to do done, right? I think we saw about an 8% escalation from 2020 bids to 2021 bids. And that's about double what we assumed was going to happen, a little bit more than double what we assumed was going to happen. So, yeah, we'll be keeping an eye on that and adjusting our project plans accordingly. Is there anything else that, any other suggestions that you guys have that can help us keep our project prices down? I feel like the longer we take to get work done, the more of an impact it has on you guys, but maybe that's a misinterpretation, right? Like if we bid a project that's expected to happen over the course of 5 months and you end up taking 2 years, doesn't that impact your own pricing, right? Because you bid it like a year and a half earlier. Is that a problem for you?
For me, it depends when the product is actually shipped here or to the contractor, because let's say I'll pick an example, 48-inch gate valve, right? If you order one now and I ship it in the next 2 weeks, you have X price. If you get it next year and I haven't made the valve for you, you haven't received it, we're not going to make it till 2 weeks prior to we ship it.
Yeah.
So pricing in next year is going to be more than it is now. We typically see one price increase per year. This past year has been 2, which is very, very uncommon for us. And I've had friends in this industry that had 3 or 4. And it's just, we just don't know what this new time is going to bring.
Yeah.
Your estimate on the 8% difference is about right. And having 2 price increases now is more like 12 to 14%. But I know there's items out there that are 40+%.
So, question on that, when you guys are bidding on a project, more for the distributor, are you giving like an asterisk to the contractor that, hey, this is the price for this bid, but we can only hold it for 2 weeks or 4 weeks or whatever it might be?
I never used to do that before. That was like, usually when I give you a price, it'd be good for a year. Because I would think April now to April of next year, I'm good.
Yeah.
But now it's like next month or 2 months, we don't know when this is going to hit us. So if we have another, storm somewhere else and it gets held up with raw materials coming out of the U.S., and now everything changes for us as well. So we got to make that increase to kind of, keep our boat afloat, so to say.
I could say with service is a little bit different. It kind of is case by case. I've seen sometimes where we're bidding contractor bids for pricing is good for 2 months based on the data we have. And sometimes we have, with municipal stuff, we've lately been, we used to hold it for about a year, or that would be like the normal terms. Right now we're kind of putting a clause in there that says we're going to reassess in 6 months. It's good for a year, but we're going to take a look and have a conversation with you in 6 months, type of thing. So
I got some vendors that I work with where they'll give you a quote and it's only good for 24 hours. So it depends on what the product is. And these are just two manufacturers here where we have thousands of products that we deal with for Waterworks. And yeah, it goes from 24 hours to 6 months, 3 months. But it just varies. It's bad.
Okay. Any more thoughts on supply chain and?
Can we leave now before everybody beats us up? We're going to get jumped off there. Across the street.
The other big question that I've got is this issue of seasonal carryover. Most of our projects we bid to be done before, if it's an underground project out in the right of way, we're trying to get those done by October 15th to be compliant with TRPA requirements. If it's something here in the wastewater treatment plant, we're trying to get those done before the onset of winter so that we have a fully functional plant over the winter. We're seeing more and more often projects carrying over from one season into the next when we didn't anticipate it. And so, we're trying to keep our planned projects moving forward, but what that means is that we have far more open contracts than we have staff to basically manage. And so I'm wondering how do we fix that problem? And maybe a lot of it is having to do with the supply chain thing, but are there other things that you guys recognize that we're doing that's contributing to this problem?
The other part of it, which is half them, but it's also half knowing how long it's going to take, or at least having an educated guess. So bidding things sooner,
Yeah.
this would probably be one of the main things in your guys' control.
Yeah, so if, we've got these Waterline projects hitting the street in December, anticipating like a May 1 start. If we've got parts on hand, lobbying TRPA to let us go on April 1st and getting an early season exception from them. Is that enough time, or should we have had these on the street 2 months ago?
Some of the areas you're talking about doing the water lines, starting earlier is only going to cost more time and more money because of groundwater issues.
As opposed to the lake.
Well, that one that you showed off of, that was off of the Lower Herbert by Highway 50, that area has a very high groundwater level.
Yeah.
Yes.
So there might be two conflicts.
This is backing up to the golf course.
Yeah, there was back
fairly close to each other.
This one?
Yeah, that one there. There's one.
Yeah, there's a drainage that goes down west of Ski Run Boulevard, right? Isn't there a...
No, I'm just familiar with the groundwater issues in that area, and not only the subterranean but the surface flows. And it's interesting because the surface flows can be mitigated to almost nothing if you can get the city to shut down certain drainage pipes up near Heavenly. Good luck on that one.
The big thing to see on that one, I think, is Bill and Shirley. The big thing up on this one, I'm digging back through my memory a little bit, but Bill and Shirley, there's a 24-inch that runs across those two streets.
Yeah, because this is a natural drainage up through here, right?
We are trying to encourage you to bid on our projects, though.
Okay, so maybe early start isn't great for these particular projects. But depends on the winter, right?
Yeah, I'm just bringing up the obvious.
Yeah. All right. These are 6,000, 7,000 foot projects. We're looking at 10 to 12 down the line. Is 10 to 12,000 feet too much for a summer? For a single bid?
It depends how many people you want bidding your jobs.
The bigger we get, the fewer bidders we're going to have. Is that what you're saying? Or maybe there's a pinch point, right?
Yeah, I think there's different thresholds in the industry. There's 3,000 foot jobs, there's 10,000 foot jobs, and there's 40, 50,000 foot jobs too. Yeah. So you get to a certain size, and you get a whole another crew,
another batch of interest.
Everybody up, So.
Okay.
And there's economy to scale too. So.
Okay. I'm on my list. What was it? The paving milestones in the right-of-way, which Adrian had brought up. If you've been working with the district for a while, we do have in our waterline specs a requirement that 90% of the water line that has been completed by September 1st needs to be paved by September 1st. Basically splitting our paving requirements into two milestones, one for September 1st and one for basically the end of the construction season, generally around October 15th, to kind of minimize that surge in paving needs right at the middle of October. Talking to the city, it sounds like they actually have some requirements in their encroachment permits that they haven't enforced in the past that requires us to pave more frequently across the duration of our projects. So I think it's written that we're supposed to do it every 1,000 feet. On these projects, that would be 6 or 7 paving mobilizations over the course of the project, as opposed to 2. How's that going to impact our pricing? Is that a problem to actually get paving contractors on board to have a bunch of smaller sections to
It'd be
pave?
hard if whoever's installing the pipe stop self-performing to get a sub in there for a day every X amount of weeks to do that, and then
2 to 3 weeks.
yeah. And then if you're testing and disinfecting and tying in and have to fall back and connect all your service, that doesn't help your trying to get a job done in a year either. You know, it makes one job a lot longer duration-wise and cost-wise.
As a ratepayer, it concerns me the multiple mobilizations of a subcontractor to go out there, and somebody's paying for that, especially if you're doing a mill and overlay. You know, getting those guys to mobilize again, and then also the asphalt plant as far as getting the the polymer oil that the city requires for their mix. I mean, there's a lot of things in there, and then also you talked about having a September 1st to where you want some paving done, so you beat that into the season rush. I don't know about anyone else, but it's been entire season. There's no difference now. From May 1 till October 15th, there's no difference. And then bidding the project very early, that's going to bring up another problem here, and that's with asphalt. The asphalt prices have been going up, and I don't expect those to go up again. We have lost an asphalt supplier in the area. Usually when you start losing someone, you're going to see the other prices and availability, other prices go up and availability be a little bit tougher.
Yeah. Well, there's a happy medium is what I'm hearing. Bid early, but not too early. Because you have more unknowns the earlier you bid, but maybe you have more time to procure stuff.
You're going to have to stay flexible to where if you bid real early and you start getting down towards that, let's say you bid in January, and now you're going to be paving in end of August to beat that September. Well, that price for the asphalt could go up another $4 a ton, $5 a ton, and you have to be flexible with the contractor to cover that increased cost.
All right, before we wrap up, anybody have any other topics that you want to discuss with us?
I can talk about the bid process. Now, when you started planning bids, that was because of the COVID, because everything prior to that was in person.
You're talking about purchasing bids.
Yes.
We've been using planning bids on engineering bids for years.
My experience on that is that it's nice having that on the electronic form, but then this has to be delivered in person. It causes a lot of issues. And then this last issue here in September with the Culver fire, mail was suspended.
Yeah.
And, the bonding, I don't know of any bonding companies here locally. Mine's out of Sacramento. And so I was scrambling to come up with some way to get a bond from Sacramento to here into your hands in time.
Yeah. And we had the same issue a year and a half ago at the beginning of COVID with this insecurity problem and, everything being shut down. And so, our offices are closed. So how do you hand deliver something? And the overnights were unreliable. And so we deal with those situations on a case-by-case basis. If everything's like, normal, whatever that means anymore, then we have had situations where we've had to throw bidders out for not having received the bid security. So
the process, I tracked my time on the process the last time I did a job for the district here in September. bid, coming up with the bid, and then filling the paperwork out, getting things notarized, back in for really a relatively small bid. I spent more time on the notarization and getting the bid done than I did actual, doing the actual bid and coming up with the price. And I apologize that I'm bringing this up, but I have done, my company has done work, and another company I had done work for the district over years too, where we've seen a process that started off very simple, and then now it's gone to a little more complicated. As a contractor, I see that, I understand that. As a ratepayer, it gives me a little heartburn because all I see that is it's costing the district more money, and thus it's going to cost me as a ratepayer more money down the line.
And you say it's costing because it's excluding people that are just like, I don't want to deal with that kind of, like excluding bidders? Or
I'm talking about the overhead.
The overhead, it drives up overhead.
That's going to be driving up the overhead.
Yeah, no, I appreciate you bringing that up. That's why we're doing this, is to hear the pain points, right?
It's definitely good you're asking though, because there are many municipalities that we won't bid to it just because it asks too much, honestly.
Right.
The bidding process and stuff like that. Especially now because things aren't as lean as they were 8,
You can be
9,
more
10 years
selective.
ago. Yeah, you can. And
Yeah.
you definitely can.
Okay. Well, Dave, I'd like to hear, more specifics on the ones that were particular pain points. We can catch up later and you can give me some of those. That'd be great.
To Dave's question, when you mentioned, are there any entities out there that you're like, oh, these people have nailed, like, this bid process that you'd like us to look to, just to kind of compare processes?
Or are we all a pain in the butt?
I've seen worse. But the process for the district is it is needed. But like I said, my experience seeing it go from very simple to really complicated, it's like, wow, are we, for lack of a better term, are we overthinking this? Are we doing too much CYA as a district? And I bring that up as a ratepayer.
Yeah, I think what you're talking about is on the purchasing side more than the engineering bids side. Just because I think we are modernizing our purchasing bid process and bringing it into alignment more with the engineering bids, which I don't think we've changed a ton on the engineering requirements in the last 10 years. And actually, bringing this up is very timely. We do intend to work with our contracts attorneys to update and modernize our engineering contract requirements. Last time we did it was 2009, so it's been more than 10 years. And we're hoping to get on that over the course of this winter. So it's not going to affect these first couple bids that are hitting the street, but there may be some changes that we see by next summer. So anyway, but if anything substantial changes, we'll address those in our mandatory pre-bid meetings for those projects. Yes.
I have a question more on design, so hopefully not too off topic, but what types of products are you typically delivering in-house versus seeking outside?
Yeah, it's a good question. So for the most part, our linear projects are being designed in-house, so water lines and sewer lines. And then, so those are kind of like the middle ground projects on the, as far as complexity goes. The more complex projects, the pump stations, the wastewater treatment plant, those we're hiring out. And then on smaller in scale kind of things, sometimes we're hiring those out. So like we have these as needed services lists that we developed for when we need something small, like we need a detail for a repair on a building or or something like that. So the two ends of the spectrum will go outside for kind of specialty work, but small scope, or big scope, more complex, and then stuff in the middle.
So like your linear projects, like I know it's kind of economy of scale, they can be longer but not more complicated, so you're still blurring those.
Yeah. That's right. Anyone else before we wrap it up?
Julie, have we talked to our board members about fighting back or pushing back on this 1,000-foot milestone?
I talked to John, and so I think we are in kind of a discussion with them right now to find some happy medium. Yeah, it may not be 1 or 2 paving, it may be 3 or 4, but hopefully not 6 or 7. You know, we might fall somewhere in between.
Because this seems like it puts an incredible burden on us, and we're going to end up absorbing much higher costs.
Right, and we want to avoid that. So we'll see where we end up. But what we may end up doing is bidding the 2-inch mill and overlay as an alternate on these water lines this year. An alternate that is accounted for in the award, and then see how the pricing comes in, and then include it in the award if it seems like we haven't taken too big of a hit. If it's coming in higher than we want, then we're going to go back to the city and say, like, look what you did to our pricing here. This is, you know, there's only so many things that could have caused this, and see if we can't come to terms with them on that before we move forward with the higher cost product. So we'll see what they say. They have a new public works director over there, so hopefully we'll have an opening for some good new dialogue with them. All right. Well, I'm not seeing anybody else trying to catch my eye. We went over a little bit, but I thought it was really worthwhile discussion. Thanks everybody for coming. I'd like to make this an annual habit. We are expecting, more money coming down the pike, more funding opportunities, and so hopefully if our 10-year plan goes anywhere from here, it's going to get bigger and there's going to be more opportunities for you all. So checking in sooner than once every 4 years is a good idea. So, thanks for taking the time.